What's up everybody, it is Dan Cam, you know, and I am back with another video. Guys, today I want to do a longer term review for the Hyte Y40 case. I've had my Hyte Y40 build for about 5 months now, and I'm going to be swapping cases here pretty soon, so I kind of want to go over a few things I like, a few things I dislike, and a few things in between. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into it. All right guys, so we've got my Hyte Y40 build over on the bench here. And like I was saying, I've had this build for about 5 months now, and I'm gonna be doing a case swap here pretty soon. So I wanna go over my likes and dislikes, and I have a little story time for you guys, which ended up being a pretty crazy situation. I wish I would have filmed some of it, but that crazy situation led to this video, and it leads me to like my favorite part of this case. And I know that sounds really weird and doesn't really make sense, but I promise you it'll make sense a little bit later in the video. But yeah, let's just jump into some things I like and dislike, and we'll go ahead and we'll start it off with the pros. So one thing I really like about this case is just how it looks. I think the majority of the industry is going with the all glass panels, and I think this was executed extremely well. And I think this build just came out looking really good with the black and silver theme. And I really like the mirror logos for the, I guess they're not logos, but the mirror sides for the Lee & Lee Infinity fans, and how like the Aorus logo on my motherboard is also reflective and a mirror as well. I just think it came out looking really good with the black and silver theme. So very sharp looking case, although I do like the Y60 a little bit better. I did a build about a year ago, and I just think it's a little bit cooler and a little bit more unique, but I do think the Y40 case looks great in my opinion. I know this is not for everybody, but I think it's a cool looking case. So the next thing I like is the vertical GPU mount. So this is also hit or miss for some people, but I really like vertical mounts. I think they look a lot cooler. I like being able to see this EVGA logo and, you know, the full RGB bar. And you just don't have to worry about sag brackets or putting any stress on your PCIe slot or anything like that. So I just think the vertical only mount is really cool, but at the same time, it also does limit you to half height PCIe expansion cards. So kind of a con in there too, but I don't really use any, so not really a con for me. And another pro is that they actually made more room for the vertical mount as far as like the space between the GPU and the glass. So they made this a 4 slot rather than the 3 slot, because in the Y60, the glass was literally like right there, and it was like, God, it was like half an inch, probably about like 5 to 10 millimeters away from the GPU. So they made a little bit more room for the GPU in the Y40 case, and it looks better. It's better for thermals, and it's not just like directly against the case. So I think that was a smart design choice. And another small thing that I like that most people don't think about, but I really like how the front panel connections are on the bottom here. A lot of case manufacturers, they put them like up here or right here. And I just think when things are plugged in and like the cable's just like drooping over, I just don't really like that look. I just think it looks ugly, and I think it looks much cleaner when the connections are on the bottom. So one thing that not a lot of people think about, but I think for functionality, it is much better. And the last pro that I'm going to talk about for now is actually the value. So a lot of people think that this case is super expensive. It is $150, which definitely is a good amount of money for a case. But if you put it into perspective and kind of break down the components, this PCIe Gen 4 riser is probably about 50 to 90 bucks as is if you were just to buy that separately. So because it's vertical mount only, you need that riser cable, and it comes with the case. So if you subtract that from the $150 total, the case is only about 50 to 100 bucks. And for, you know, 2 tempered glass side panels and, you know, just the overall looks of it, I think it's a pretty good value at $150. And I don't know if this Gen 4 riser cable is like universal. It probably really depends on this mount down here, like if I could put this in another case. But if you can, that's a steal, because even if you went away from this case, you can just go ahead and use that riser cable in another build. So guys, that's the pros for now. I do have one later, but that's gonna come after the story time. So let's jump into some things I don't like. So the two big things that I do not like about this case are the thermals are not fantastic and just the fan positioning in general. So the thermals, while my GPU runs at like a max of like 75 Celsius under a benchmark and my CPU's like 76, they're definitely within limit and they're fine. It just, you know, mesh cases are always going to be better than the all glass cases. So the thermals aren't fantastic and vertically mounted GPUs are definitely not going to be the best for thermals. So the thermals are okay and they are passable and they're fine. You don't have to worry about them, but they're just not the best. But the biggest one is going to be fan positioning. So the current fan positioning I have right now, these 140 millimeter fans are intake, and then these four are going to be exhaust. So I'm at a little bit of negative pressure, which is not ideal for most cases, and it works, but you usually want either neutral pressure or more ideally some positive pressure, but you just can't really do that case if you plan on filling up all the fan spots. I mean, I could remove these two fans and just have two exhaust and two intakes, and it would be positive pressure because those are 140 and those would be 120, but I just don't want to do that. I think it looks better with these fans right here. And the biggest part about the fan positioning is what they did down here. So it's not installed right now. I'll throw up a picture, but down here, there's a spot to mount a 120 millimeter fan, and it just really doesn't do that much. So I hope I'm going to be able to show this on camera, but let's see. So you can kind of see through, you can kind of see the backing right there. So the fan sits about right there, kind of like right where my figurine is, and just blows directly on here. And it does have this channel right here to where the fan air is supposed to come through here and through the GPU, but it does absolutely nothing. I've tested this and at best it made like a degree difference, if that. So I don't really understand the why they went with this route with the fan right here. And I know the PSU sits right here, so they couldn't put it directly under the GPU like the Y60 was. But this fan down here just absolutely makes no sense. And the worst part about it is when the fan's right here, it makes so much noise when it's bouncing off this plastic plate down here. So I ended up removing it just because even at like 900 RPM, 1000 RPM, like it was incredibly noisy. So I don't really understand the fan positioning in this case. I know it can't really get much different with the size and like the front glass panel, but I do think that the fan positioning in this case is kind of dumb. All right, guys, so let's jump into the story time. So it all started about 3 weeks ago. I was going to play the X-Defiant beta, and if you don't know what X-Defiant is, it's a game that rivals Call of Duty. It's made by Ubisoft, and it's an arcade shooter that I've really been looking forward to. So I downloaded the beta, installed it, and went to go play, and about a minute into the main menu, my PC just literally shuts down. And I'll throw a video of exactly what happened, but my PC just shuts down, does not restart. So I manually restart it, and I go back into the beta again, and it does it again, it does it again, and it keeps happening. So I'm like, okay, there's an issue with this game. So I look on Reddit, and I also find that someone else is having this issue too. So I'm like, okay, it's probably just because it's a beta and something weird's going on and it's causing PCs to crash. So I link up with Ubisoft's support and I send them all the info and like the diagnostic report and all that good stuff. And the beta ends and I forget about it. So about 2 weeks later, I'm playing Rocket League, and after about 4 matches, my PC shuts down again. I'm like, okay, maybe this wasn't an X-Defiant issue. Maybe this was, it's an issue with my PC, one of the components or software or something. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. So to test it, I load up another game, which ends up being Hogwarts Legacy, and it does it in the same spot every time. There's this cutscene to where like an ogre jumps out, and right when he jumps out, it just freezes every single time. So I'm like, okay, there's an issue with my PC, so let's jump into it. So the weekend comes by, and I'm literally diagnosing things for like 3 to 5 hours. I try to update every single thing on the PC, from DDUing my old GPU drivers, chipset drivers, BIOS, literally every single thing you can think of, and it keeps doing it. So I'm like, okay, I've got to swap out some hardware. So I swap to a different GPU. It actually stops doing it. So I'm like, great, there's something wrong with my GPU. But then it actually does it with the other GPU too. So I keep running these things, and I think I ended up exchanging RAM too. And actually, no, I just reseated the RAM, still doing it. So I'm like, okay, this is probably a power supply issue. So I end up putting a different power supply in. So I've got this EVGA 750 watt that I ended up putting in, and the issue is completely gone. So it was just really weird, but my Antec power supply just completely crapped out. And before, I had this thing cable managed so nice, but right now you can tell it's just kind of a mess. And I know there's going to be someone in the comments that's, oh, if the back panel closes, then it's fine for me. Well, I'm different, bruh. I'm different, and I like my stuff cable managed to the fullest. So that's actually the last pro that I'm going to get into and we're going to talk about is the cable management. So because it's a rat's nest down there and I've got a new PSU with all new cables, let's go ahead and cable manage this thing. And I'm going to show you why I really like this case. And that's actually going to be because the build experience in it is awesome and the cable management for it is even better. All right, dudes, we've got everything detached from the power supply, and we're basically going to do this one cable at a time. You can see we've got my GPU cables down here. We've got my motherboard 24 pin draping over the top. We've got my CPU cable, which is right over there. And we've got some SATA cables here to power for my, my fan controller. And then this is for the AIO. So we're gonna do this one cable at a time, and we're gonna do a little time lapse, and I'm gonna show you the end result. So let's get into it. So I am all done with the back, guys, and this is the reason why I absolutely love this case, is because once you take the time to do the cable management in the back and the front and just get things dialed in, it looks so clean and it's so rewarding, and the end result just looks so good. I've got all of my PSU cables routed along this little channel back here that's got a bunch of zip tie points. And guys, it just looks so clean. I love how all of the PSU cables are completely hidden. And then even if I wanted to put the bottom fan back in, it sits about right there. You can see none of the PSU cables are going to obstruct with it. And the fan's going to spin freely, but it just looks so clean. And I probably put in about an hour of my time to cable management. So for me, I think it's worth it to take these extra steps and just make it look as clean as possible. But I know the majority of people out there are just gonna put the cables in and close the back panel, which is cool. But I really like how this case offers that opportunity to take it a step further and just cable management to, you know, this point. It just looks so good, and I'm so happy with the end result. That's gonna do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it and it was informative, please drop a like and consider subscribing if you enjoy content like this. I do PC builds and tech reviews and everything in between. So consider subscribing if you wanna stay up to date with the latest content. But guys, that's gonna do it. I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll see y'all in the next video.